Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Apex. In today's episode we're doing Formula E again. We're round 13 and 14 in Portland, a double header in Portland, which we didn't see last season.
And the penultimate double header of the year.
Absolutely. We've come in, we've got London in a week.
Oh yes!
But yes, let's talk about Portland. Sam just mentioned it's an absolutely insane track.
Oh yeah.
You get 4 wide going into turn 1 for
like every single lap. It's the nature of the circuit having been an actual proper race circuit.
Yeah, I mean they do IndyCar and stuff.
IndyCar.
But even Dad said, I think when we were watching it as well, you know, the track is so wide.
Oh, it's insane.
It's so wide.
And the straight is so long. It's just all about energy conserving for the battery, and that's why we have so many changes for the lead.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's really, I don't know, coming from tracks like Monaco and things like that, you're used to kind of 2 wide or 1 wide, and then you're coming to something that's like you could go 4 or more wide.
Easily, yeah.
Absolutely insane, and it makes for good racing. So let's get into it. We'll talk about Envision first.
Actually, a very, very good weekend for them.
Well,
obviously,
for one.
Yeah, for one driver. So obviously, Flynn's got a podium in race 1 and race 2, and I mean, when he was leading race 1 as well at points, I mean, they clearly had the pace. It was just unlucky, but it is great points for the team after a season that actually hasn't been that great at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're reigning teams champions, and they've come into season 10 and it's all gone downhill pretty much. They've been overtaken by the manufacturing team, which is Jaguar. But yeah, no, a great result for the team, especially with Fryns. You know, we kind of said Wemmy was kind of the main top driver in that team, but he was clearly outperformed.
Absolutely, and I mean, Fryns is really kind of stapling himself as, do you know what, I'm not coming into this team to be a second driver. I'm coming in here to actually show myself, and he clearly is, because, do you know what, over the past couple of races, he really is outperforming Wemmy, and it's really weird to see. Bearing in mind, last season we saw Wemmy getting pole positions, getting wins, getting on the podium consistently, and now he's just kind of nowhere, and Fryns is kind of taking that team leader role.
I agree, and I think a really important thing is thinking Fryns is not just new to the team, he's coming back to the team. He's been here previously, he's been here in the past, I think he's had several years with the team. So it's not kind of foreign to him, he's kind of coming in, he's kind of getting comfortable with it, I reckon. Yeah,
I reckon so. And also, I think it does help, obviously, he's had experience at the team, he knows the engineers, he knows the mechanics, he knows kind of the language that they speak at the team, in terms of kind of like technical language. And I feel like that's kind of one of the reasons why he's doing well again, because it's not like he came into this team new like Cassidy did for Jag, and he has to get used to the whole team before he can then get used to driving again. Flynn's is coming in basically immediately bedded in again.
Absolutely, I think I agree. And obviously, talking about Nick Cassidy, we'll go on to Jaguar.
I mean, they had the pace again this weekend. Yes. Obviously, Mitch on pole for race 1. It was so unlucky at the end of the race for Cassidy, spinning out the 26th out of 27th lap. And obviously that would have basically secured him the championship if he'd actually stayed in first position. And
I think it was, I was texting you at the time when it happened, and it was definitely a team error. It was a team mistake. They should never, if they were fighting each other.
Mitch had the penalty as well, it doesn't make sense.
Mitch had the penalty, they were fighting each other, absolutely no point. Cassidy goes off the track, done for. And I think, do you know what, if you were going to just stay behind Cassidy because you're going to win anyway.
Or do you know what, stick Evans in front, and then Cassidy just stay behind because you're going to get in front anyway.
That's what, they just should never have been fighting, but that's just inherently racing, isn't it, to be fair?
I think Cassidy always is going to want, we know the temperament of Cassidy, he always wants to secure himself first position on the track no matter what. And I think that has been to his detriment. However, race 2 was a positive. Obviously, Evans on the podium, and Cassidy did have to pit at the end, which obviously has kind of... It's definitely made the championship a lot more interesting. Obviously, he's still in the lead, but it's a lot tighter at the
Going into London, it could all change.
Oh, absolutely, it could all change.
Which I reckon, as much as it's bad for Jaguar, personally,
it's
going to make that double header in London absolutely insane.
It's going to make it insane. And obviously we know London, it's such a tight twisty track. We saw last year, obviously the massive pile up in the kind of penultimate corner. Anything can happen in London.
Absolutely.
And I do think the top 3 drivers, obviously it's Cassidy, Evans and Verline, it's going to be very interesting.
I agree, and obviously the car park became a car park.
Oh my gosh, Jesus Christ.
But we witnessed Jake winning his first championship on the Saturday.
And obviously, did Cassidy go into that leading? Or no, it was Dennis leading and going into the
Dennis.
Yeah.
But anyway, we saw someone reigned world champion, and we're going to see that again, and I'm so excited.
It's going to be so close. I do think he's going to go into the final race because I have a bad feeling that Cassie's not going to have a good race one again. Yeah. And it's all going to come down to the second race, and he's just going to storm it.
I agree.
So Cassie is one of the drivers that just performs under pressure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Moving on to Andretti.
It was just an okay weekend. I mean, it was not for the championship at all, and I do think Dennis has kind of put the championship out of his mind now. And in terms of just kind of good points for the team, it was around the P6, P7 for both races for singular drivers, and it was just okay.
It was okay, and again, Andretti are a weird one because obviously I reckon they have completely written off season 10 in terms of progress in the championship, but they're probably focusing more on season 11 now. But yeah, an okay result. It could have been worse.
Yeah, absolutely could have been worse. And I mean, obviously in Formula E, people run everywhere in the races. I mean, Neto was running up in P2 at some points, and then they dropped down. It's all about kind of the efficiency of the battery, and it's just when it comes to the breaking point of the end of the race and getting it right and getting the amount of percentage in the battery right, it just seems like Andretti this year have just not kind of got that perfect. Unlike the likes of Jaguar and DS Penske at the end of the season as well.
No, I agree. It is one of those things, and I think they have one-off kind of results where they're really, really good at certain tracks in terms of energy efficiency. However, this wasn't the case.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You talked about DS Penske. We'll move on to DS.
Obviously, we've seen such a rise in them in the end of the season.
And Jeff in general.
Oh my god.
Absolutely insane. Like I feel like I've seen him on the podium all the time.
Yeah, and I mean he's sticking in poles left, right, and centre. So obviously he got pole in race 2.
Yeah.
And obviously he's just always up there. And I mean a driver of Jev's experience. Obviously he raced in Formula 1. He's raced in WEC. He knows how to drive a car, and it's clear to see that when the mechanics actually are able to set the car up right, they get everything right. He performs to his highest.
Absolutely, and I think DS have had a really good season. To be fair, I think going into season 11, they're really going to be on top of it.
Absolutely.
They're always they seem to be there. They're always there. Like I say, with podiums with Jev and stuff. So I think we might be on to a championship contender.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's going to be really interesting to see. Obviously, if they hadn't had the poor start to the season that they'd had, genuinely, I think Jev could have been in the running for the title now, and especially the constructors. Obviously, they have such a good lineup with Van Dorn and Jev. They really, if they'd just gone on top of it, they would have been here this season. Absolutely,
they would have been battling the likes of Porsche and Jaguar. They've got 2 drivers that are absolutely so experienced in Formula E and in general. Absolutely insane. But we'll move on to Abt Cupra.
It was actually a very good weekend. We never normally say this for Abt, but Nico Müller, P5 and P6 in both races. Obviously, I can't remember who the second driver was. I think it's Degrassi. Degrassi was kind of on the brink of the points on both races. However, Müller was just there. I don't know what it is about this track, but he was just there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it goes back to what we said about Andretti. The team have one-off good things.
Absolutely.
And again, I don't think Abt have that many.
It's kind of like one a season.
But yeah, I mean, the team are definitely not going to be disappointed with that result, but in terms of Degrassi, maybe not so much.
Yes, and it definitely, obviously, we saw in Berlin, Müller is an exceptional driver when the car's underneath him. Obviously, he's had such a career before this. And it's races like this where you can see just when everything links up, he's consistently there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I agree, and I mean, I think he's a slept-on driver, to be fair.
Oh, 100%. He's definitely underrated.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to ERT. Quick and fast and nowhere, nothing to say, pathetic.
I mean, I think we say this every single weekend with ERT. I mean, it always seems like they're running at the back. I mean, their driver lineup isn't the greatest, I think we should say that. But it's just, it feels like they have no drive. They'll sometimes get in the lead drills, and that'll be a positive achievement for them, and then they'll just fall back in the race. Yeah. So it's always like
it's all about energy management, I reckon.
Oh yeah.
They just haven't got what the other teams have got, I reckon.
No, and it's all to do with the personnel in the team and everything like that. And in a team that's budgeted like ERT, they just don't have that. And
that's true.
They've kind of just solidified themselves in, look, we're just in the running.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're there, they're doing their thing, but not very well.
No, to say the least.
No.
Maserati, it was just an okay, nothing special again. I mean, sometimes we'll see Gunther in these incredible positions where he's kind of in the podium positions, leading the race, and we just didn't see that this weekend.
No, and I think Gunther, like you said, he's been on the podium several times through the season, and I don't know, sometimes he just drops off. He's nowhere. And I think this was one of those weekends.
Absolutely. It was one of these outliers where he just didn't have the pace for anything. He didn't have the pace for one of his special kind of semi-finals in the duels or something like that. And I mean, this should be, I'm not gonna lie, this is a weekend which is an average weekend for Maserati. They shouldn't get used to that kind of running up there.
No.
And that's why I said it's kind of an okay result.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think they'd be going away from it disappointed.
No.
Especially with, you've got the people fighting in the championship like Jaguar, Porsche, and Envision are up there. They're not doing badly. Is the best way to put it.
No, not at all. This is an outlier, and I'm sure they'll come into London fighting again, because obviously we saw last year Gunther loves London, and he just has a special result every now and then.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll move on to Mahindra. I mean,
it was a great result. Yeah. I mean, Edo P4 in race 1, and was also running high up in race 2 as well. Obviously had that contact which put him out of the race. But it feels like they're starting to get on top of that car.
I think so, and I think we've said it, we'll say it again. It is so good to see, because obviously they had that little bit of a blip in kind of progress at the start of the season. But to see them doing well is really quite refreshing.
Absolutely. I mean, it's finally kind of, obviously they had those problems in testing, and that kind of shaped the first half of their season, but it feels like now they're starting to get back on top of it. Yeah. They're starting to progress to a point that they're back up equal with the other teams. Yeah. And now they are able to start to kind of drag the results out of the drivers.
Absolutely, but then you say that, and then again, Nip had not the best weekend in Portland.
And it's frustrating for Nip, because obviously we know his talent, we know it, and it's kind of just like everything's just slammed on top of him, and he's not performing to his best at all.
I think he's not been given the right kind of kit to then do well. He's world champion, he should be able to do well, but he's gone into a team that are not one of the top teams. No. They've had that issue in testing. It's one thing on the other, and it's just not worked out.
And the question arises, should he have rushed to get that seat in Formula E? Obviously, he got kicked out of Formula 1. He was desperate to try and find a seat somewhere. He got a brilliant seat in WEC, and then for some reason he went, no, let's add Formula E on top of that. But there's no good seats left. And he should have kind of maybe waited for next year when there's a seat arising at kind of maybe a Nissan or someone at least better than Mahindra, where he'd gel with the mechanics more and actually get more out of it, because he just seems like he's running at the back.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. We'll move on to McLaren.
What a weekend without the results. Yeah. And it's just such a shame, because obviously we had great qualifying pace. Front row for Jake in race 1. He was leading the race into turn 1. And then everything just falls away, like usual.
Formula E, isn't it?
It's just Formula E. And I mean, they had great pace, great quality in race 2 as well. But again, a double DNF. And it's just, and it shows that anything can happen in Formula E. I mean, that crunching of carbon fibre, always.
The front wings,
the front wings didn't have a good time in Portland, to say the least, and especially on the McLaren cars.
You can hear it on the TV and it's horrible. Oh, yeah. But hearing it in person...
Oh, it's definitely. Yeah.
It's horrible. It is horrible. But not the best weekend. We'll
No, absolutely not. And I mean, obviously, Bird got P7 in race 1, but that's not what we're kind of aiming for now. We know that we have the pace. We know that we can kind of fight the Jags and the Porsches on off weekends. Yeah. And it's just not one of those weekends.
Yeah, I agree. We'll move on to Nissan.
Obviously, we had the news that Ollie Rowland wasn't well enough to do this race, so Kaya Collette, who's kind of prevalent in Formula 2, had a great junior career, kind of stepped in, and do you know what, he did a very solid job.
Do you know what, I was watching this stream, and I saw Collette, or is it Collette?
Yeah, Kaya Collette,
and I was like, who? Yeah. I was like, am I watching the right thing? Yeah. Who's this? And I had to go on the Formula E, and I was like, oh my gosh, yeah. Because I knew Rowland was out, but I didn't know who was going to replace him. But yes, agreed, a great result. Yeah. Obviously, we've seen it a lot this season. We've had issues like Sam Bird breaking his wrists, and then Taylor Barnard coming in. And it's really good to see that progression from other drivers kind of doing well.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's kind of showing that the efforts that Formula E are making to kind of put in these rookie tests, to put in everything, are working, because it allows drivers like Taylor Barnard, like Collette, to come in and actually gel with the car quite well already, and then go off to get a good result. I mean, we saw it with Aaron as well. Aaron had great pace when he came into the car immediately. And it's kind of hats off to Formula E, because 3-4 years ago they wouldn't have had this, where junior drivers can just step in and do well, because it's a very complex motorsport series. And yeah, I mean, fair play.
I agree. It kind of creates that, anyone can, not anyone, obviously.
No, yeah.
But I don't know, it's a step, it's a feeder series.
Yes.
It's a step in the right direction for drivers that want to get to, say, Formula 1. And Formula 1 has kind of become such a closed off thing. Like, you can only test in it if you're like, world champion like Jake Dennis, or in F2 or F3. And it's like Formula E is saying, no, actually, come and have a go like in our cars, be our development drivers. We're going to have rookie tests. And like you said, I think hats off to them.
And I do think it's genuinely putting FE on this higher pedestal than it would have been a few years ago, because it's definitely, I think I've heard kind of mentions from Formula 1 teams in this, that they're kind of putting it on an equal pedestal to kind of IndyCar now.
Yeah.
As in terms of, do you know what? It's a good idea to put their reserve drivers into Formula E, just get them racing through it, because the racing, in terms of kind of their race kind of practice, in terms of battling cars, is fantastic in Formula E. That's all they're doing all the race.
That's all they're doing. They're learning how to, defend and tackle and it's perfect for drivers that are up and coming and things, and I think I agree with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But obviously, finally, onto Porsche. What a weekend! Da Costa does the triple. This is 3 races in a row now. I mean, you'd think he's on the championship charge. Annoyingly, he's so many points back that I don't think we're going to see it. No. But what a weekend!
Absolutely insane. I think Porsche again are just slept upon. They just come out of nowhere sometimes, and it's like, what? Bizarre, but a great weekend.
Great weekend, and it's always in race pace as well. It doesn't kind of matter where they are in the quali. They will always kind of have that race pace to get to the lead and then just take it. And obviously we saw instances. Da Costa did somewhat get lucky these races. Yeah. However, you make your own luck. Yeah. He was there. He kind of took it by the reins, and it was a great result for the team.
And I think you said it there. They don't always have to start at the front, but when they get to the front, they can actually maintain it.
Absolutely.
In terms of energy and, like you said, personnel. I think they've got such a strong team to be able to kind of change what the way that they're doing things in the race. So if they're running in P7, they'll run things in a different way, and then all of a sudden they'll be running in P1. They know how to switch up and change it in the right way to then manage the energy. And
it's just that experience of personnel. I mean, it's the reasons why kind of McLaren aren't, when they are leading the race, aren't able to kind of conserve that, because they don't have that kind of flexibility that the teams like Jag, like Porsche have, and that's what really sets aside the top constructors.
It's adaptability as well, isn't it? Adapting to where you are in terms of the race. Cassidy runs a lot in the back, and all of a sudden he's in the front. So it's being able to adapt.
Yeah, but he's just magic. So
he is magic. But the team in general, not necessarily Cassidy, but being able to adapt that technology. I mean, I think it's incredible. Being able to adapt to then running at the back where you've got drag and all this stuff, to then running in the front where you're not following anyone, you're using more energy because you're running your own race essentially, and everyone else is dragging behind you. It's absolutely insane.
It is insane, and I mean, we saw it. Obviously, we mentioned it at the start. We see this perfectly at Portland. This is all about a drag race. It's all about kind of actually working out how much you can push, how much you can't, where we're going to run for now, where we're going to run at the last laps, and it's fantastic to watch, because you can see all of the kind of the chess games being played by each of the teams, and Porsche absolutely nailed it.
Absolutely, I agree. Well, that says it all. That was Portland in a nutshell. We're going into the final round in London next week.
Both going to be there at some point.
Absolutely, So I'm really excited for that. But we'll get back to you on that one, and we'll see you soon.